Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with what I believe is a Gold League replay. We are focusing on the Terran player Tesla here down in the bottom left-hand corner, and his opponent for today is actually going to be the Platinum League Zerg, JayforJunk, up here in the top right-hand corner. And we are on Tal'darim Altar, so a fairly large map for a ladder map, and one without a ramp between the natural and your main base. This is one that people often go for a fast expansion, particularly Zerg will tend to go pool first, while the other races will try and figure out a way to go for a fairly quick expansion as well, and that is what we're going to see out of both players in this game. The three things that I'm going to focus on most today are going to be, number one, primarily build order timings, making sure that you're fairly crisp between the things that you're actually doing, getting your buildings up, getting units out, making sure that you're still producing your workers, and so on. There are often just periods of inattention or periods where your timings don't really match up, when you could have either squeezed out another unit, squeezed out an additional tech, or just made your things actually sync up a little bit better. So we'll be focusing on that a lot. The second thing is going to be knowing how your opponent will react to things, and trying to actually play off that. So it's never good to be caught by surprise on something that you really just should have known. Well, of course they were going to react like that. That kind of made sense for them to do, is the obvious thing for them to do. The third thing that we're going to look at today is knowing what information you're actually giving your opponent, and knowing how long you've given it to them, and again, what are they going to do to react to that. So you want to control what information you're actually giving away. So checking in with the build order here, he is going for a wall off here and getting a marine out. The SCV goes out for his scouting, perhaps a little bit too late. You often want to see that a little bit quicker, particularly on a large map like this, or else you're quite a bit in the dark for some period of time. It can take you until about up to the 5-minute mark or so to actually even find out where your opponent is if you happen to scout in the wrong direction. This Marine does go out and on its way. This second Marine also going out and just getting positions on the map. But this barracks is actually idle here back at home. So the two Marines have gone out into the map, not usually something that you see the Terrans doing unless he is going for some sort of bunker rush. But you certainly don't want to have that barracks completely idle back here. So this is the first example of a bit of a timing gap. Now I am going to be stopping and going a little back and forth throughout this game. It is a fairly short game, as you can see here, but I just want to point out some of the significance of some of these actual timing gaps. So we'll look at when that gap actually started to occur, which was at around 3:40 in the game. Here the Marine comes out, barracks is idle, we do have enough money to produce another Marine. We are making an SCV, and in fact have one queued up, and a factory's going down. So there's nothing that is going to be diverting the money. But at 4:03, we start that reactor. Given that a Marine takes 25 seconds to be building, there's no reason that that couldn't have been delayed to 4:05, and we would have gotten an entire other unit out there. So try and make sure that that timing either has that reactor going down a lot quicker than that, so that it's closer to when that second Marine was pushed out, or you want to be squeezing a Marine in between those times. You don't want to have a facility completely idle like that if you're not using it for something. Either get the reactor on it quicker, in which case you're maybe going to put this gas down quicker, or alter some other thing that you're doing, maybe not start the factory until after the reactor is done. His plan here is going to rely on putting the factory on the reactor, so maybe you want to invert the order of those. That's the type of thing that you do want to be looking for to tighten up your build. So as opposed to having multiple units out right now, there is only that 2 Marines out on the field when there could be easily a third Marine out. Now, for the second instance of this, we'll again look at that factory timing here. The factory is finishing up right now at about 4:37 or so. A Hellion, which is what the Terran player is going to do, can be afforded there. He did spend the money on a bunker, which I'll check back in on in a moment, and put down a command center. He's got an idle SCV there as well. But note in this time, 30 seconds has now actually gone by. He hasn't lifted that off to put a reactor on. He hasn't made 2 new Marines out of there. So we're now missing 1 Marine from earlier, 2 Marines that could have been made out of that reactor, and 1 Hellion that could have been made out of the factory. And all of these are things that actually could have been afforded at the time that those facilities were done. Finally, that does go down, and instead of, again, making anything at the barracks, goes to add an additional tech lab to everything. So we're just very, very thin on units, and in fact, at this point in time, there is no military units available for the Terran player at all in this game, but we're going to expand there, and as these 2 Hellions come out, the expansion is going to go down. Now we'll just check in up here, and another issue of just lost timing. Again, rolling back, we are going to do that a bit during this. Right around 4:20. This is where the SCV is coming up, does see, okay, the Zerg is here. SCV rolls into position and then waits next to the hatchery while 2 Marines come out. So the SCV got there around 4:20, maybe 4:22. Starts building this at 4:38. It's only a 40-second build. Had he immediately started building that, then that would be done right about now. As opposed to having the 2 Marines completely dead, they could have tried to kite back a little further, stayed off the creep, not really killed themselves to go for this Overlord. If we had had the 3rd Marine that should have been built back home also rallying up to that, then we'd have a completed bunker done before those 2 Marines were actually killed off, and in a position that would be hard for a drone-only attack to actually do much to. The SCV would have been there able to repair it. So again, just losing 15-20 seconds where the SCV is sitting there waiting. If you're going to throw that bunker down, and to be honest, I think it was just kind of an improvised, let's see if I can do this play, which likely wasn't going to do much good there. If you are going to throw that down, then be decisive, get it down right away, because it's a period where a matter of a few seconds does make a very large difference in what you're doing. The tech lab there, again, does complete and sits for a while without being used. Here we see it got done around 6:10. Wait, 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 wait. And again, with plenty of money, it's now just at 6:30 starting to produce something. Now just at 6:30 starting to research something there. So again, just missing a few seconds each time. This factory now not building anything else. We reveal the Hellions. So the Hellions here were at the Xel'Naga Tower. Again, going back and forth a little bit here, but that's kind of the point of this game. They do check this tower. They kind of poke over to this other tower and see that there's a drone there. Now what they'd probably want to do is actually move away and not reveal that that's what you've done. The Zerg player at that moment in time doesn't know that the Terran has gone for Hellions, but he knows now, at about 6 minutes and 50 seconds into the game, he knows. Well, he responds by making a ton of lings. So he made a few initial lings to make sure that he could defend against that bunker. Again, if you wanted to attack without them having a lot of defense, then odds are you don't want to poke at them early and actually provoke the exact defense that you don't want to see later on. But now he's attacking into something that he let the opponent know was coming for about a minute. So he let the opponent know that I'm going to get Hellions towards your base here, and he let him know about a minute and 20, a minute and 30 seconds ago. Of course he's going to be fairly well defended. At 8 minutes in the game, when those Hellions arrive, is there any chance that he doesn't have Speedlings or Roaches or Spine Crawlers down or something? What are the odds that that would actually do well at that period in the game, given that you've already provoked him to defend himself, that you saw that he had only made drones up until that point, that you tried to place down a bunker? Of course he's going to switch into military and defend himself. So what you were doing was actually revealed a fair bit too early. It wasn't a surprise at all to the player, and he was definitely prepared by the time that came in. Back here, again, we can just see that nothing really came out of all these units. No units actually came out of all these structures, is what I mean to say. What was defending home was 3 Marines and 1 Marauder. There were 2 bunkers down, but only one of them even had any units in it. These facilities were just thrown down quite hastily to make an impromptu wall to try and hold that off. Not really positioned very well, but at that point it was a bit late. Anyway, this reactor was actually abandoned and not used. He moved the factory over and actually remade a reactor on the factory, which takes a long time. So again, these Hellions and probably another whole round of Hellions could have actually been out and defending this position. He could have switched and moved into a tank defense in time. There was actually time for all these switches, and that would have completely held this front. If these Lings had come in and had tanks behind, had Hellions behind, had even just 4 or 5 more Marines in these bunkers, then it would have been a lot harder to actually break through that, particularly if he was able to get down and repair these from behind, which he also didn't really do there. So again, just to recap everything, it was really a game where a matter of seconds or 10 or 20 seconds here or there caused our Terran player to have a lot less units than he actually could have been. It caused his attacks to be a lot later than they should have been, and just led for a situation where the Zerg had no problem responding. He was always pre-warned about what was going to happen. He knew that there was a Marine out on the map because it was shown down here. So he knew that you may end up with a Marine near your base. He was not unprepared for that small attack. He saw that Hellions were in the game when they killed a drone over here, and they didn't actually arrive at the front door until over 1 minute later. So again, he was perfectly well prepared. He was able to get a bunch of Lings out in time, and just nothing was surprising to the Zerg at all during this game, and everything was just a bit too slow. Nothing was really hitting a timing. Nothing was really taking advantage of speed or surprise in this game, and the Terran was just way behind in the production of units, just leaving things in a position where you're missing a Marine here, a Marauder there, a Hellion here, and just leaving those units on the table. There's no reason that this money couldn't have all been spent by the time that Zerg army came up this ramp, and then you'd have a much more robust defense in place and ready for that counterattack. Again, the Terran shouldn't have been caught unaware. Once he completely crushed the Hellion force here, and I won't really comment on the micro, obviously that could have been handled better as well. They were fairly easily surrounded in that instance and didn't really make much use of the terrain around and so on. But given that he completely crushed that with a lot of lings, you've got to be expecting that, yes, those are definitely coming right towards your front door. And you do want to have a much bigger defense for that. So just get things out a lot quicker. Work on your build orders so that things that rely on key timings or simultaneous timings, like I want my reactor done at the same time my factory's done so that I can switch them, or when these things are done, I don't want to be distracted by 2 Marines in a battle up here because I'm supposed to be back home switching them. You can't lose those seconds. You can't lose that time. It starts at 2-3 seconds per thing. It adds up to a couple of minutes over the course of even just a 9-minute game like this, and just makes that attack so much later. So that's what you should be working on in your builds, and make sure, take a look at some of your own replays, even just the first 5, 6, 7 minutes of them, things that you tend to do over and over, like you've got your I do by 3 racks factory Stargate build or Starport build or whatever. Just take a look at your timings and say, well, am I leaving my facilities unused for any period of time? Am I making an add-on that I'm supposed to be transferring a building to, but the add-on's done too late, or my building's done too late and it's causing a delay? Could I squeeze out another unit here? Should I be making it later in the first place? Things like that. And that's how you really work on and perfect your builds so that you are actually able to hit those crisp timings that everyone talks about. So again, I hope that's helpful, and thanks for